Alright, you guys said you wanted it. Let's jump into learning how to use a bit of C Sharp in Godot. Alright, so the first thing you're going to need to do in order to use C Sharp inside of Godot is you're going to have to come over to the website here and download the mono version, which has C Sharp support here. Of course, go ahead and use your platform of choice, Mac, Windows, whatever. Go ahead and download it. And you cannot get this through Steam, as Steam only has the standard version. As far as I know, there's no way to get the C Sharp version on Steam, so you'll have to come over to the website here and pick it up. Don't know if the C Sharp version is on itch or not, but again, I'm grabbing mine right here directly from the website. Once you get that downloaded, you can go ahead and open it up. Start a new project is exactly the same. Open it up, you have your list, hit new project, create your folder, name your project, and we're here. Brand new file. Everything looks exactly the same. And if you go ahead and if you were to right click and take a look at your files inside of your manager, now you guys can't see this here, but if you do this on your end, you'll notice you have a mono folder here. And inside of that, you got metadata, and you got the assemblies, debug, and all that fun stuff. So what we're going to do is, I thought about this, and I could just do this in small chunks. Right? We could be like, take one video and be like, okay, we're only going to focus on variables here, or the variable types here, and then we're only going to focus on specifically arrays here, specifically dictionaries here, and we might do that after this video, but in this one, we're going to bring a good chunk of these like basics together, and we're going to make a small application that allows us to type something into the line edit that's on screen, press a button that's connected, has a connected signal to our script, and we're going to have that react on screen in some way, such as maybe we'll have a label that shows a number that increases. And with that, we'll be able to go over variables, signals, connecting them, functions, how to get nodes, and how to get the properties and assign new properties to these nodes. So that'll give us a pretty good base to start from going forward without getting into anything too complicated. So to do this, I'm just going to select user interface. That's going to give me a control. And I'm going to go ahead and just save this. I'll just leave it named as control. That's fine. And I'm not actually going to run my scene here for a moment. And what we'll see is that was extremely quick. Perfect. Awesome. Everything seems to be working fine. And here's where we can go ahead and start adding in our code. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this new script button, or you can right click and add a script, attach a script, just like normal. So far, everything is pretty standard. Now here's the difference. We're going to go to the language here, and you should have C Sharp listed here, which would be a .cs extension. And this is going to have our C Sharp code. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit create, and we see we're generating a solution, and a solution is related to C projects. So you're going to have solutions with things like C++ and C Sharp. Now I'm just going to use the built-in editor here, but if you wanted to use an external one, I believe it's up here in the editor settings. And if we search external, you can select to use an external here and hit the browse button here and go ahead and locate the executable of what you want to use. So if you want to use like CLion or Visual Studio, you can go ahead and set that up. And then when you open a script, it should automatically open up in that or using that application. I'm just going to use the default one here. If you use an external, you might have some autocomplete, which might help you or help make your life a little easier, especially when you're learning. And I know this is very small on your screen. For me, it's way over on the left, and it's going to be a little annoying. So I initially figured I'd just zoom in post, but I think I'm just going to scroll in on my own here, just so I can see things a little better. So you notice things are things are a little different here. At the top, we have using Godot and using systems. When Previously, the only thing we would have at the top is extends, and in this case, extends control. Well, here in C Sharp, we have to have this at the top, and actually, if we want to use lists, so like a standard array, and there's a few other things that I needed it for as well, we actually need to also add in one more thing here, and I'm going to show you that here. Let's use system.collections.generic, and in C Sharp, every line must end with a semicolon. So if you do have any errors, make sure that you do have semicolons being used here. Alright, now, followed up, we have public class control, Godot.control. This line here is essentially the equivalent of our extends control that we used to have at the top in a GDScript. Alright, now everything else from here is everything that you would normally expect. So we can put our variables up here at the top. We have our ready function and our process function. Same things that are put in here by default. And you'll notice these curly braces in here. Whatever you put in needs to be between this pair of curly braces. Whatever we put in, doesn't matter what we use, but it has to be put in. So if we put on the outside here, we're going to have an issue, we're going to have errors. And I just want to show you a few things that we can do here for when it comes to our variables. So when it comes to our variables, we can actually get these in a few different formats, them being private, public, protected, and I believe there is, I want to say, one or two more. There should be an image on screen at this point showing you all the versions with a short description of each of them. And the way we would do this is we would do something like public, and then we would deliver or tell it what type we're using here. So example, we can say a string, and then we follow it up with the name of our variable. And this variable is going to be, let's say, my text. And in C Sharp, you actually use the standard practice would be a capital at the beginning of each word like this. And then we can either end it with our semicolon, or we can set it equal to whatever we want the value to be and end it with a semicolon. Now, since we just have it like this should be fine. And if we go ahead and run our scene here, you'll notice it's building our project solution. And if it opens up, we're perfectly fine. We're good to go. You can't see that here. Let's see if these warnings will pop up here. If I do this, building, there you go. So you see, if we have a build error like this, then you have something wrong in your code itself, the code itself. And down here at the bottom, we can see that it expected a semicolon on line 7, character 22. So I can just go ahead and put that in there. Awesome. If we were to run that again, that's going to have a successful build, and it's good to go. Alright, now if you wanted to have this text here, your variable out on the side inside of the inspector, because I know some people that love to have everything exported, you just do a pair of square brackets on top of your variable, and type in export, and if you save that, you might notice that it doesn't show up like it does in GDScript. In C Sharp, we have to actually build the project that we can run there. And you see it starts up. We have our variable, our script variable here, my text, and it's equal to null as the default because we did not assign it to anything. Now we can come down here and we can create another one. Let's say we go ahead and do that. We save it, nothing happens. You can notice down here at the bottom we have an MS Build tab. And if we hit this build and hit build solution, you can see we'll go ahead and build it without having to run the scene itself, and our script variables will update. So if you don't want to run the scene, you can just rebuild it down there at the bottom of the screen. Now I'm just going to go ahead and scroll through all of our different types here. So if I just do this real quick, we can see we have to have export above all of our variables, or each variable that is going to be shown on the side. And I just go ahead and build that real quick. So you can see these are all the same. For an int, you do int. Float, we have float here. String, we've seen up there. I can just pull that out. Booleans, true or false, it's just going to be bool. Now, you might be wondering here, what is this, right? Int, and then we have some square brackets. This would be the equivalent of a pool int array, which it's like an array, but it is, I suppose, more specific, which is going to give you a little more performance, at least in GDScript. I would assume you may have that as well in C Sharp. Whether something like that is going to be noticeable, I don't know. But all we do here, we do int, we do a pair of square brackets, the variable name, and then you'll notice here, instead of square brackets, we actually use curly braces. And what this is, it's like an array, only you can only have integers inside of it. And you could do the same thing, like we see below it here, on line 23, with strings, and you could do that with more things, such as here we have obj list, which should be typed more like that. If we want to stick with the standards here, and you'll see our type here is object. Now object simply means that we can stick anything in here. So as you see, we have a float, we have an integer, and we have a string. So with an object type, we can just have all different kinds put in here, and it doesn't really matter. And as you see with my comment here right above it, you cannot export these. So if you were to build this out, because it's using the object type, it is not going to show up in your inspector. Maybe there's some trick to get it to show up, but if there is, I don't know it. Moving down, we have a list. And this is, of course, a list of strings, but a list is more akin to a standard array that you would be used to. Again, list is another word for an array, and this is, there are some things that you can do with a list that you can't do with the with our more specialized versions that we have up here. So, in my opinion, list is going to be easy to work with, but we can still work with the aboves. And a dictionary, again, is just a normal dictionary. And inside of these carets, we actually put in the key and value types here. So in this case, object, but you could have, say, a string and an int if you wanted to do them that way. And we do color if you want to have the color select. Let's go ahead and do a quick build there. So color will give you this little selection tool here. And if you want to have an enumerator out here so we can have a drop down, we're going to create an enum, give it a name, have all your values inside of it, again inside of your curly braces, and ending with a semicolon. And then to create this into a drop down, we can go ahead and export it, because obviously we want it to be a drop down menu that we can see and select from. We can go ahead and make it private, doesn't really matter. And for the type that we put in here, we put in the name of our enumerator variable, and then we give a name to our dropdown. End it with a semicolon. Go ahead and rebuild it, and you'll see we now have a drop-down menu. Alright, so hopefully that covers everything that we need there for the base of our data types. If there's any types there that I missed, by all means, go ahead and let me know. And I'll go ahead and add that in. And if you notice the warnings down there at the bottom, they're basically just telling me that the values of some of these, in fact, most of these, just aren't being used. They're nothing to worry about. In an actual project, you're probably going to use all the variables you create. In this case, I have not. And that's all that it's yelling at me for, which is simple warnings that you can turn off. They're not important. They're not going to break anything. Alright, so now that we have all that covered, again, that's our basic variable types and how we would declare them and write them here. I do want to take one note here is, like you see right here, on my int list here, you don't need the public and private. You could completely avoid that and it'll build just fine. So I suppose visually that's going to be something up to you and how you want to do that. So let's go ahead and jump into creating our own little small little program here. So to keep things visual, let's go ahead. I'm going to create a label. And we'll just put it here in the middle of my screen. Well, middle-ish. Come in, we'll have a line edit. And I'll create a button. It'll just say OK. And we'll bring it down. Alright, now if we were to run this, you can see it here, it's running. Go ahead and capture that on OBS now that we have it here. Whoops. This one. This. There we go. So we can see it's there, it's running. And since this is so small for this, I'm just going to go ahead and give us a nice little zoom in just by making that bigger for you. Alright. So we can go ahead and we can get our code working. So normally, you'd come down to your button, you go to node, you hit pressed, and you connect it. And that's perfectly valid. You can still connect it that way. You'll notice that it put it outside of this curly brace, which is a no-no. So you will have to grab it and move it back in where it should be. And just to make things a little easier, cleaner, I'm going to remove all of that stuff since I won't need it. And what I'm going to do is disconnect my signal here. So if you've noticed through other videos at this point, is I like to connect my own signals. So to create a function, we're just going to come in here. Remember, we're inside of our last curly brace, and we can just go ahead and do public, void, and then the name of our function, which is just going to be button pressed. Open and close parentheses. So far, everything looks fairly normal. I mean, the beginning here is a little different, but we'll drop down to the next line, do a pair of curly braces, and hit enter so we can now go inside of it. This is the typical structure of a function, and you may notice that these two functions are a little different. They're different from GDScript, but they're also different from each other. And the reason they're different from each other is this override keyword. Now, when you're using a built-in function, you're going to override it. So this will be things for like enter tree, exit tree, the underscore ready, process, physics process, input, handled input, unhandled input, all those kind of things you're going to be using override for. But when you're not overriding and you're creating something brand new, we don't have to use override. Now, what we have here with public void button pressed, this is effectively the equivalent when it comes to GDScript of saying func button pressed, right? And normally you end it with a colon. And in GDScript, the void would be on the outside like this. So you can see there's a bit of a difference, but everything is still there. It's just kind of ordered in a different way. Instead of func, you use public or private, and void gets moved in between the function keyword and the actual name. So you can see slight difference, not a big deal. Hopefully that's clear for you guys to understand there. But our button press there isn't going to do anything until I connect my signals. And I think I'm just going to use private here. And I like to call mine connect signals. Just personally, just so all my signals are in one location. And I can call connect signals, if I spell it right, and end it with a semicolon. Now, how do you connect a signal? Well, in GDScript, we would have to get the node, call connect, and then pass in some information. And that's similar here to how we do it in C Sharp as well. It's written differently, but it's still the same process. Now, you'll notice in GDScript, you get underscore node, like this, all lowercase. But in C Sharp, we have no underscores, and they start with capitals. So in C Sharp, we would do it like this, get node. Now, the difference, again, that we're going to have here is with get node, we have an open and close of our little carets, and we're going to tell it what type of node we're looking for. So we'll say button, because that's what we're looking for, right? We're getting a button. And then we have an open and close pair of parentheses here, and this would be our path. So from control, since that's where our script is, we're coming down, we just got button. We don't have to go into any sort of tree. And we put in the name of this node. Now, we call it a button, but we can come in here and call it my button if you wanted, just to make things a little clear and distinguish them a bit. So you would go with that, like that. So inside here is going to be the type of node we're looking for. And inside the parentheses is the name of the node / the path to the node you're looking for. All right. So now that we actually have the node we want, we can call connect. And you might be tempted to just write it out like this. But remember, in C Sharp, it starts with a capital for all of us. So it's connect with a capital C. Open and close parentheses. And this part is going to be familiar to you. It's the pressed signal. Now, in this case, we would connect it to self, but C Sharp doesn't use self. If we type it in, self means nothing. And if we run that, it would probably tell us that self isn't defined. In C Sharp, instead of self, we say this. So this, meaning this object that the script is on. So if we wanted to access this script stuff, we would say like this text. Or actually, we're not on the control. There we go. Right. So we say like this dot speed, this dot damage, this dot rect position, this dot rect size, etc. Instead of saying self. And we have a comma, and then this last part in GDScript, we would have just a normal string here with the name of our function that we want to connect it to. However, in C Sharp here, we actually use name of, open and close parentheses, and then we have the name of our function as a string. So I'm just going to copy mine in there, make sure it's typed correctly, button pressed. Like so. And now our function should be connected, and something should happen when we press this button. So I'm inside of my button pressed function here. I'm going to go ahead and type GD, both of those characters are capital, dot print with a capital P. And inside of our open close parentheses, I'll put a string, and I'll just say button pressed. And remember, at the end of our line here, we put a semicolon, and I forgot one up here where I was connecting. I haven't used C Sharp in quite a while. And if we go ahead and run this scene, oh, I have a build failed. Why is this? Expression does not have a name. Oh, my mistake. It's not a string. Apologies there. It's just name of the function, no string. There we go. And now when I hit my OK button here, I should see down in my output that button pressed gets printed out. There we go. It's popping up. So I know my button is connected and it's working properly. All right. So up here at the top, I don't need my text variable, and I don't need it exported at all either. So I'm going to go ahead and, for now, just leave that blank. And inside of our button pressed, we clearly don't need this function. Or sorry, we don't need to print out anything here. But when our button gets pressed, we need to get our line edit node. So we're going to be doing get node inside of our pair carrots, where we're looking for a line edit. And then we pass in the name of it, which just coincidentally happens to be line edit because it's still the default name. And now we can get a property from it, in this case, text. Remember, C Sharp, everything starts with a capital, so it's a capital T for text on the property. And right here, we have the text. We're ready to set it to something. Now, the question is, what is it that we're looking to set to? Or that we want to assign anything to? Well, we can take this text. And just to keep things a little simple, we're just going to take that and we can store it. We obviously don't have to do that, but I just want to show you local variables inside of a function. And inside of a function, we can actually this is where we can actually use var, and we can give it a type, or we can give it a name, right? So we can say, we can just call this t, because we only need it in this one instance, so that's fine for the name. So say t equals get node line edit text. So the value of t should be whatever is printed inside of our text here. And we can go ahead and test that out. gd.print, pass in t, make sure your lines end with a semicolon. Let's go ahead and build it. We have no issues. That's a great sign. We hit OK. We don't see anything in the output. It's great. Let's go ahead and type something in. This is test text. Hit our button. And it pops out. You change it to something else. Alright, so our button is working fine. Our variable is working fine. And we're getting the property and whatever's stored in it beautifully. Alright, so we can see that this is working. And keep in mind, using var for variable here, we can only do that inside of, or we can only do that for a local variable. So we can only do that inside of a function. If you're outside of a function, you have to do what we were doing earlier. Alright, now to make this look a little neater, we'll do the normal thing. We'll get our line edit, get the text property, and we'll just set that to an empty string to make it clear. Or we should be able to come in here and call clear on it. Let's see if that works. Nope, run into an issue. Right, expected a semicolon. That's usually the problems that I have with these. I don't use semicolon languages too often. And if I hit OK, that gets wiped out. Awesome. So you can see this works exactly the same as GDScript. The only difference is it starts with a capital C for our function names. Alright, so now we're printing out whatever is written inside our text. We're clearing out that line to make it look like that text has been submitted. And instead of printing it out, what we want to do is we want to set that to our label. So we can go ahead, get node. This is going to be a label type that we're passing in. This is also coincidentally also named label. And we'll get the text property. And we'll set that to our variable t, whatever that is. End it with a semicolon. Run and rebuild. Now, whoops. Mistake. Let's just redo that real quick. Alright, now whatever I type in here, this is my demo text. Hit OK. Boom. And it's written out there beautifully. Now we can see that it's a little off-centered. It's fine. That just has to do with our shape. Sorry, not our shape, our dimensions here of our label. So if we wanted, we can just pull this over. Set it up. We can set the align to center, vertical line, center. And we can set it to auto wrap. And if we wanted to clip text, but we won't. And now when we run it, say, this is really cool. I am loving the use of C Sharp. Hit OK. And we see, there we go. It stays centered there, wraps around. The issue that we would have here, of course, is if it's too big, it's going to go behind or on top of our line edit. So You would probably ideally want to go something like that and click the text. Then maybe set the vertical line to top. And if we run that again, C# is amazing, and I am loving this performance boost that I get with it. And now when we run that, we see, there we go. So we see our little program here is running. It's running pretty well. And with C#, I don't know if it's still the case, but I want to say it was like a 10 times boost in performance. Maybe it's 4 times. Not 100% on that number. But in 4.0, obviously that's going to change a bit because GDScript is getting much quicker. But this is how you do it. This is how you use C#. And I do want to note that you can use GDScript and C# at the same time. So if you wanted, I can come in here and I could put a script on top of my line edit. Sorry, on top of my label. Pick GDScript. There we go. And we can go ahead and use this as normal. So self.text equals, this is my default text property. And if we run that, we can see both scripts are going to run together. And if you access one of their scripts, we should be able to get that. We should be able to get that easy. And to show that, I'm going to go ahead and we'll create a variable. We'll call this CS for C#. And we'll set that equal to get parent. I went down to a new line. Get parent dot. In this case, we could get a variable that we had in here. All right, so we'll say public int. We'll call it speed. We'll make it a value of 5 for this. And we could access speed here. Whoops. I don't know why I did that. And then print out CS. There we go. And if we run this, we can see we printed out down in the output the value of that speed variable that is on our C# script. So you could use C# for your entire project. You can use it for just the portions that you need a speed boost on, or just the scripts you need a speed boost on, or however you want to do it. You can use C# with GDScript. You can use just GDScript, just C#. Doesn't matter. It's up to you how you want to use it. But that gives us our introduction into using C# for you GDScript users out there. We looked at how to declare a bunch of different of our variable types. This should have been public, private, and I'm forgetting the other ones now. That should have been on screen for you guys to take a look at. We looked at how to connect a signal in C# through code. You can still use the connect node button over there, right next to the inspector. And we looked at creating functions. We looked at getting nodes, accessing their properties. And we made our small program at this point, right? Alright, so that'll do it for now. I know this has been a bit longer. I'll try to cut this down, but that's it. Take care, have yourselves a good one, and we'll get into some more specifics in the next C# video that comes out, and that'll be much shorter than this. With those, we'll be a little more specific, so we'll take a look at it. Like, here's a dictionary, here's how we can edit things in the dictionary, add things, remove things, change things, etc. And then we'll move on to something like maybe lists, and we look at the difference between a list and like our pool string array, for example, and why you might want to use one over the other, and how to transfer between them, and all that lovely stuff. But for now, there's call it a quick introduction into using C#. Hopefully the way I went over that helped some of you GDScript users understand the difference, or understand how to translate what you know into using C#. And for some of you that might be coming over here brand new to the engine, hello and welcome. And if you just want to take a look at how C# works here, hopefully you learned a good deal as to how things work and to get you going, get you started. But all right, take care. I'll see you guys in the next one. And if you have any maybe C Sharp specifics, since we have a C Sharp video here, go ahead and leave them down below. And I'll take those into consideration for future C Sharp videos.